Greenberg's live global travel update is presented to you by Colette. Discover the world. Guided travel since 1918.
Hi, everybody. Peter Greenberg here, coming to you from Southwest Florida, in particular the Ritz-Carlton here in Naples on this third Friday of May, 2026. Lots of stuff to talk about today, as you can imagine. Let's start with the continuing fallout from the battles in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz and what's going on in terms of your airfares. It's getting even crazier. We're looking at scheduled triage of unprecedented proportions by airlines around the world. Not just in the US, not just in the Gulf. We're talking about Air India starting to slow back their routes to the United States. Air Canada stopping flights from Montreal and Toronto to New York's Kennedy Airport. We're seeing Lufthansa, we saw this last week, canceling 22,000 flights, not just for a day or a week or a month, taking them off the schedule entirely. And we're just getting started. We're seeing triage happening at TAP in Portugal, SAS in Scandinavia, and of course with airlines like Finnair. They're really strapped because not only are they having problems with fuel costs and fuel availability, their routes have changed because of airspace is being closed in affected regions, forcing them to fly longer and burn more fuel with fewer passengers. We've already talked about the double-digit drop in international travelers to the US, a double-digit drop of US passengers going overseas, but now we're dealing with a perfect storm of capacity issues even in this country. Airfares on international flights up 40%, airfares on domestic flights average up 20%, and in some cases stratospherically higher. I'm going to give you an example. A good friend of mine, shout out to my friend Paul, who sent this to me, was flying from New York to Los Angeles. He likes to fly business class. He pays for it. A normal one-way business class fare from New York to Los Angeles on Delta was about between $1,200 and $1,400 most recently. He got this online yesterday. We're going to show it to you, not making it up. Can you read that price for a one-way ticket? We're talking over $4,900. That's not a ticket, that's a Toyota. Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And yet the airline is getting those fares, especially in the front of the cabin. And they're auctioning off the rest of them, as you know, not just to people who are members of the frequent flyer program, but anybody who's in coach who wants to pay more at the last minute or less than they would have spent had they bought it 3 weeks ago at crazy prices like this. Continuing on, we're seeing numbers that are changing in terms of the American behavior when it comes to travel. A recent survey from Hertz says that 67% of us are now planning a road trip this summer. However, other statistics are coming in saying that a majority of Americans are holding back on flying overseas this summer, and a majority of Americans are changing their plans even to fly or not fly domestically this summer. What does that mean? It's road trip time. However, we have a problem with that. 2 days ago, I was in Los Angeles and filled up my car with gas. And by the way, I do not drive a battleship. I drive a car, right? Anybody want to guess what my tab came to fill up the tank? I'll show you. Show the receipt. Can you get it? $132 to fill up the car. Gas in Los Angeles, where I filled up, and by the way, all over LA, $7 a gallon. Ridiculous, unsustainable. And yet, what will AAA tell you? That this Memorial Day, record numbers of Americans will be on the road, right? And it's shaping up, by the way, as the summer of the road trip, considering we have the 100th anniversary of Route 66 and the 250th anniversary of our country. What's interesting about that is, while AAA will always tell you the number of cars that may be on the road, They don't tell you how many people are going to be in each car. And the higher the gas prices go, what a surprise, the more the number of people in the car. It becomes a clown car with Granny strapped on the roof and a remake of Beverly Hillbillies. Now, speaking of road trips, talk about conflict of interest and serious ethical questions that are being raised. The U.S. Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, has just done a television show, a reality television show where he's driving his family all across America to celebrate the 250th anniversary of our country. Okay, and he claims it's not being paid for. It's $1 million minimum. It's actually more than that. It's not being paid for with taxpayer money. And he's correct about that. Here's the ethical problem. Who funded the show? Who paid for the show? Are you ready? Boeing, Toyota, a number of U.S. airlines, the very companies that the U.S. Department of Transportation regulates. Anybody got a problem with that? Count me in as number one on the list of people with a problem with that. I mean, and what is the U.S. Transportation Secretary doing on the road when we haven't fixed our air traffic control problem? We haven't fixed our air traffic controller problem. We haven't fixed our runway incursion problem. We haven't fixed our inspection problem for safety, not only on the production line, but on maintenance facilities. I mean, whoa. I mean, what are we doing here, right? And everybody acts as if this is fun. It's a public service that the Secretary of Transportation is doing his version of the Griswolds. Maybe he should keep driving. This is not appropriate, at least from an ethical perspective and from an execution of office perspective. Do your job. We don't need you on the road. We have enough people going to be on the road this summer anyway. Just thought I'd mention that and say hello to some other people while we're doing it. Let's scream up here. Linda is saying hi from my little patch of paradise. Here we are, southwestern Florida, and heading later to Fort Lauderdale, I might add. All right, Jim and Harriet coming in at number 2 today from Richmond, Virginia. Hello, Jim and Harriet. Scott Cowan saying hi from Plainfield, Illinois. Mr. Cooney is now, from the Palmer House in Chicago. Very interesting story about the Palmer House. What a great historic hotel in downtown Chicago. We've actually broadcast in there before. Do you know what they're responsible for inventing? You're going to love it, which is why I go back. They still have it on the menu, of course. They invented the brownie at the Palmer House in Chicago. And where's the Palmer House located? Very close to the historic start of Route 66. Thought you'd mention that. Camilla is saying hi from Tucson, as she always does. Paul is saying greetings from Ashland, Virginia. It's a beautiful day, nice visit to Vienna and Slovenia. Yep, we love those locations. We've shot in both of them, by the way, for our show on PBS, The Travel Detective. Priya's saying hello from Chicago. There you go. Go down to the Palmer House and get a brownie. Okay. Linda says, I should be sitting outside on the deck overlooking the Gulf. You know what? I would, but that would send the wrong message. Sort of like driving across America with the Secretary of Transportation. What, me? Relax? Nah, not going to happen. Colleen's saying, greetings from Book Passage in Corte Madera, California. One of my favorite bookstores in the world. I'm a huge supporter of independent bookstores like Book Passage or the Tattered Cover in Denver and so many others. The only danger I can tell you about Book Passage is a little known fact, but you need to know it. If you buy a book from an independent bookseller, that's not a chain, and you want them to ship it to you, guess what? You don't pay tax. Now, if you buy a book from Barnes & Noble, which is a chain, you pay the applicable state sales tax. So what I do at Book Passage, and I have to say it's dangerous, I go there and buy as many books as I can that I love. They ship them to me UPS for maybe $15 and no taxes and no schlepping. But what a great bookstore because of another reason. The author readings, the author programs that they have there. I mean, it's an integral part of the community there in California. So congratulations to all the folks there at Book Passage. Okay, Redco Music is saying, watching from Omaha. I always laugh when I see mileage bloggers still treating their miles like an investment portfolio. You know what? Delusional, right? However, let me say something which is an unusual byproduct of what's going on with the conflict in Iran. and the drop in air travelers, for the first time in recent memory, I'm seeing the sudden availability of frequent flyer award seats, and in many cases at lower redemption levels. This never happens. Now, how long will that last? Not long. They're more like pop-up sales. You have to really monitor this very carefully. There are a number of apps that will do that for you. But if you're sitting around hoarding miles, which you should never do, this is the one opportunity where you can really do it, meaning really redeem some miles. We just saw mileage the other day from Texas to Johannesburg. Normally that in coach would be about 180,000 miles. Ridiculous, right? You know what it went for? 40,000 each way. That's a huge drop. And you're going to start seeing that across the board in selected markets where the airlines have no passengers right now. But again, not going to last long. Jump on it this week. All right. Lawrence is saying hi from, nearby in Estero, Florida. Reese is saying hi. Linda says, I booked my airfares through January 27. All of your airfares you already booked. Now, wait a minute, how do you do that? Most airfares are only valid for 330 days. You have to tell me how you do that. Nashville, France, Italy, and New York for the travel show. Not taking any chances of rising airfares. Okay, but remember, there's a little silver lining here. Remember, airfares right now, you mentioned, or I mentioned, airfares going up 37% to 40% international, over 20% domestic. That means they're also going up at the rate of 1% to 2% every 3 to 4 days. So anybody's waiting around to buy a ticket, even if they opened up the Straits of Hormuz tomorrow, you're dealing with a 6 to 9 month stabilization factor of getting back to normal, and that's presuming the airfares are ever going to come down. But if you buy your airfare now on a U.S. carrier, and the airfares do drop substantially between now and the time you take your flight, you're in good shape. Why? You then cancel that flight, get a full credit for the full amount you paid, then apply that credit immediately to the lower airfare, and get an additional residual credit that you get to use for another year. The only caveat there is it's not really another year, because that that clock keeps ticking based on what? The day you bought the original ticket, not the day you were going to fly. So if I buy a ticket, as Linda just did, for 8 months from now, and 8 months from now I cancel it to get another ticket, that residual credit I get is only then good for 4 months. All right, you do the math. Debbie's saying hi from New Jersey. Paul says, is it better to book a flight with stops from JFK or Washington Dulles to Southeast Asia or Japan, or plan a few days stopover on the West Coast coming and going? It all depends on what you want to do. There are a number of airlines, and not just talking to Asia or Japan, that will give you free stopovers if you're going through their hub. Qatar does that. Turkish Air does that. They even throw in, for economy tickets, 2 nights at a hotel. For business class tickets, they'll give you three nights. But going to Asia, I like getting, for me anyway, I like getting the long haul portion of it out of the way first. But if you can stop over and it's not going to add appreciably to your fare, why not break it up? I have no problems with that. All right, let's see. Christian says, what is going to happen to the airplanes left by Spirit? What is the federal government going to use them for? Well, the federal government doesn't own those planes. The federal government didn't seize those planes. That's not what happens in bankruptcy. The federal government never bailed them out to begin with. Here's the deal. Spirit Airlines has very few assets and had very few assets. Why? They didn't own their planes. They leased them. So when you declare bankruptcy in that situation, or you cease to operate, those planes immediately revert to the companies that leased them. And then they, in turn, try to lease them out to other people, right? That's their asset, not Spirit's. That's one of the reasons why Spirit ran out of money, because they had nothing to pledge as collateral to secure a last-minute loan to get additional financing to continue to fly. On the other hand, JetBlue, which was facing a Chapter 11 filing about 3 weeks ago, they do own their planes. What did they do? They pledged 22 of them as collateral to secure a $500 million loan so they could keep flying through 2026. Spirit didn't have that option. Nobody was going to give them any more money. They were already operating in Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The federal bailout failed because the United States wanted to be paid back first, and the other creditors said no deal, and that's exactly what happened. No deal, and Spirit ran out of money, and we all know what happened after that. All right. Conchetta is saying hello from Delray Beach. And Judy's saying, is it better to make a domestic connection in Charlotte or Dallas for American? Well, It all depends on where you're going, number one, and what time of the year, because, Dallas tends to close the ramp more often than Charlotte does when you have thunderstorms or lightning. And in the summer months, they get a lot of it. So tell me the answer to the question, then I'll tell you what to do. David says, greetings from Abu Dhabi. Okay. And the Gulf is slowly coming back. Emirates, next door to you in Dubai, they're restoring about 80% of their flight schedules. So is Etihad. However, hotels in Dubai right now are operating at about 10% occupancy. They have not bounced back. Okay, Jim and Harry says, have I heard that someone wanted to revive Spirit by doing a GoFundMe page? Oh yeah, that's still ongoing. Officially, they've raised about $335 million, but there's really no plan on how they apply that money, who gets it, what it's going to go for, because the only way anybody can buy Spirit now is to buy the debt before they can even operate the airline. And Spirit Airlines lost $2.5 billion between 2020 and when they went out of business last week. So $335 million is essentially a drop in the bucket, literally. So we'll monitor that. It was a nice sentimental touch. People still didn't want the airline to fail. Neither did I. I want as many airlines flying as possible for all the right reasons of competitiveness and keeping everybody else honest. But the low-cost airline business model is no longer sustainable. That applies to Allegiant, Sun Country, Frontier, Avalo, because their marketing advantage, and they did have one, at least on the consumer side, was what? Low airfares. But the low airfares couldn't pay for their expenses, and there was nothing low cost about those airlines, therefore, and the business model failed. And then the airline itself, in this case, Spirit, failed. But mark my words, Frontier, Allegiant, Sun Country, and Avalo have the same challenges that Spirit did. Watch this space. Okay. Camilla's saying all those Spirit planes are now sitting 45 minutes to an hour and a half from us here in southern Arizona. Not all of them. Some of them are still in Newark. Some of them are still in Florida. But they're only going to stay there long enough for them to be picked up off the runway and flown to companies that will now lease them. So stay tuned for that. Andy's saying hi from Springfield, Illinois. Andy, we're going to be there soon because we're shooting our 7-part special for PBS, Hidden Route 66, which, as you know, goes through Springfield. So we'll see you there soon. Michelle is saying, do you think another airline like Breeze will benefit from Spirit? Actually, let me tell you what's happening. Not far from me, I'm in Naples, in Fort Lauderdale. JetBlue's made the full court press. They've gone in there with increased frequencies. They're looking to get more gates there and to really flood the zone. And Breeze is not necessarily going to flood the zone in Fort Lauderdale because Breeze has a different business model. They like flying between underserved markets. Providence, Rhode Island, is one example, or Islip, Long Island is another example. And Breeze has actually done pretty well. Breeze is owned and operated by a guy named David Neeleman, who I happen to think is a genius. David was the guy who came from Southwest Airlines and then started JetBlue. He was the guy who did it back in 2000. I was there for that first flight, and he did remarkably well. Then he went down to Brazil and started Azul, their version of JetBlue, and now he's back with Breeze flying A220s, a very efficient aircraft, on routes that have been underserved. And you know what? He's even doing transcon flights. He's doing Providence, Rhode Island to LA. That's pretty cool. Anyway, Breeze has already benefited from picking up traffic that is not being served by the major legacy carriers. Bonnie's saying, hello, Bonnie is saying hello from Pennsylvania. Gina's saying from San Diego. And David's saying, you didn't roster JetBlue among the airlines with challenges. Yes, I did. I just told you that. You said, what's your prognosis for JetBlue's viability? I'll give you the specifics, David. Before the Iran conflict, JetBlue was already $8 billion in debt. They were spending annually $600 million in interest payments just to support that debt. When Iran happened, their fuel bill went up another $1 billion. That gives them an unsustainable debt of $9 billion. That's why they were facing that possibility of a Chapter 11 filing. That's why they collateralized 22 of their planes to get enough capital to continue to fly. All bets are off for 2027 right now. We're going to have to see what happens. But just so you know, that's what we're talking about. All right. I mentioned Frontier earlier, but I want to mention them in regards to something else. You may have seen the story, and some of you may have even seen the disturbing video of the guy who walked out on the runway at Denver and was hit by a Frontier plane rolling down the runway. That's not the story I want to talk about. When that plane came to a halt, they detected smoke in the engines, and the pilots who'd made a successful aborted takeoff on the ground ordered an immediate evacuation. Let's run the video.
Tower Frontier 4345, we're stopping on the runway. We just hit somebody. We have an engine fire.
Can you know the souls on board?
We have 231 souls on board. There was an individual walking across the runway.
We've got smoke in the aircraft. We're going to evacuate on the runway.
I need you all to move away from the aircraft.
Holy shit. We almost died. That is fucking crazy.
Now, what you didn't see in that video, and by the way, hats off to the pilots for making a successful aborted takeoff. Obviously, that man on the runway died when the engine hit him. Crazy enough story there, but they did the right thing for evacuating the plane. They popped the slides and the chutes, and out they came. Once again, passengers leaving with their carry-on bags and all their goodies. Please, folks, just get off the plane. Evacuations are tough enough. You don't need to take your favorite teddy bear, your briefcase, your laptop, or anything else. What you need to do is get off the plane. This happens time and time again. Passengers don't listen, and you saw what happened. It's sad. It's sad. So anyway, that is exactly what happened with Frontier earlier in the week. Speaking of sad, when I landed at the Southwest Airport, Regional Southwest Airport in Fort Myers the other day, heading where I am now to Naples, and going through baggage claim, I came across one office that was darkened and blacked out, and I took the picture. Yeah, the Spirit Airlines baggage office. Now, here's the interesting problem with that. That office was closed, and it was empty. All those baggage offices for Spirit, wherever they happen to land, were also closed and blacked out and empty. But it begs the question, what happened to the bags that were in that office? The lost bags that were waiting to be retrieved? Where did they go? And right now, nobody seems to have the answer. So we're checking that out. An unusual situation that nobody accounted for or anticipated. But, you know, if you go to any airport and they've lost your bag, there's a baggage office there, and chances are that's where the bag's going to be before they send it out on a van to you, assuming they find it. Well, there are no vans running around delivering bags for Spirit, but there were a lot of bags there and in many other Spirit offices around the U.S., so we will track that story as well. Now, every week I try to give you a little bit of nostalgia with all the old airline commercials. Today is no exception. Here's a little blast from the past from TWA.
TWA 747. In 1970, by being the first to fly it across the country, we opened up a whole new era in big, wide, cross-country travel. It was the most comfortable, most advanced plane in the air. Now, only a few years later, we have a plane that's even more comfortable, even more advanced. TWA's 1011. It's the culmination of every improvement and every comfort we've ever thought of. We've made part of first class a dining room with big, comfortable swivel seats. You can even make reservations as you would in a restaurant. In the big, spacious coach, we put in unique 2x2 seating, so you'll never be more than one seat from the aisle. But what's most important isn't that it's big and comfortable. It's that it's the most advanced plane ever built. In fact, it uses some of the same technology that landed men on the moon. If you liked our 747, you'll love our 1011. It's what an airplane should be. And that's what makes TWA what
Dining reservations? Yep, those were the days. Those were the days. Anyway, TWA, which now stands for Try Walking Across, with all due respect. All right, speaking of fun things, let's go to the photo of the week. Catch that. All right, we love this photo. Now you know where it was taken. You better know where it was taken, right? Antarctica. Congratulations to Yvonne Wakely, who took that photograph. She writes, I went there to see the emperor penguins. It was on my bucket list and I succeeded. There are 18 species, and now with them I have seen all the 18 species. Another great part of the 23-day adventure was going to the northern part of the Falkland Islands. I've been there, and walking around thousands of penguins. It was fabulous. And now I've been to all 7 continents. Okay, Yvonne. By the way, speaking of the Falkland Islands, otherwise known as Las Malvinas, if you happen to be in Argentina, interestingly enough, even today, as you leave the airport in Buenos Aires, as you're approaching the airport, there's still a sign that says Las Malvinas son Argentinas. They still think they own the Falkland Islands. And then when you land at the Falkland Islands, you see all the Falkland Islander signs basically saying, guess what? Get rid of the British. It's fun. Anyway, Yvonne, great photograph. We loved it. And if you think you got a photo that qualifies as the photo of the week, just send it to us, photocontest@petergreenberg.com. And if we like it, it goes right up there next to Yvonne's. One final note, by the way, another fallout from the Iran conflict, but it was actually the fallout started before then. It's about FIFA and the World Cup. Guess what? There's a huge difference between a book ticket and a block ticket. There's a big difference between a booked hotel room and a blocked hotel room. At any major event, whether it's the Olympics or Democratic or Republican conventions or the Super Bowl, where you have mass movements, lots of people coming, the organizers, the sponsors, always block rooms, huge blocks of rooms, right? Olympic team delegations will block rooms. Sponsors like Visa will block rooms for their clients and for their key markets, blah, blah, blah. Guess what FIFA did about 2 weeks ago? They gave back. They released over 10,000 hotel rooms they no longer need for the games. Why? Not everybody's coming, right? Remember that double-digit drop in foreign visitor arrivals? That includes FIFA and the World Cup as well. What does that mean? Well, now let's talk about tickets. Tickets were selling at an unbelievable premium not too long ago. In fact, they're officially still selling at that premium. Well, wait a minute. If nobody's coming to stay in the hotel rooms, who's going to buy the tickets? Well, Americans are going to buy the tickets, but the smart Americans may actually get lucky. If the hotel rooms are being given back, the ticket prices are going to start to come down. So we'll watch that space as well. Again, our radio show tomorrow, I hope you'll catch it, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Check your local markets. It's also streamed live on our website, petergreenberg.com. We're off to do, of course, our 7-part series on Route 66. We're shooting in Illinois, Missouri, Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, California, you name it. It's a wild show of the Mother Road that really built America on the way west. That'll be premiering, by the way, this November. Why November? Because that's the actual 100th birthday of Route 66. I hope you have a great weekend, everybody. And please be safe. And remember, don't wait to buy your tickets. They're only going to continue to go up. This problem is not over by a long shot. So mark my words. Anthony Protas, thank you for doing the boards out in Los Angeles. We'll see you next week, everybody, from another location somewhere around the world. Bye, everybody.